In the year 1258, the greatest city in the Islamic world was erased in just 7 days by an army that rode out of the cold Asian steppes and changed the Middle East forever. When it was over, rivers ran black with ink from burned libraries, streets were buried under bodies, and a civilization that had taken centuries to build collapsed in a single week. This is not the story of a battle. This is the story of how the Mongols erased Baghdad. Before we talk about destruction, we need to understand what Baghdad was. Because Baghdad was not just another medieval city. It was the capital of the Abbasid Caliphate, the heart of the Islamic world, a center of science, medicine, mathematics, and philosophy. While much of Europe still relied on candlelight and handwritten manuscripts, Baghdad had hospitals with trained doctors, libraries holding hundreds of thousands of books, astronomers mapping the stars, engineers building water systems that supplied millions. Merchants from China, India, Africa, and Europe passed through its markets every day. Gold flowed in, knowledge flowed out. Baghdad was called the City of Peace, and like many great cities in history, that name would soon become painfully ironic. Because by the mid-1200s, the world outside Baghdad was changing fast, and something unstoppable was coming. To understand Baghdad's fall, we must go thousands of kilometers east, to the Mongolian steppe. This was not a land of great cities or stone castles. It was a land of wind, grass, horses, and survival. Here, generations of nomadic tribes learned to ride before they could walk. They trained with bows from childhood. They lived in a world where weakness meant death. And in the early 1200s, these tribes were united under one man, Genghis Khan. Genghis didn't just build an army, he built a system. His soldiers could ride faster than any army on earth. They could shoot arrows accurately while riding at full speed. They communicated with signal flags, drums, and messengers. They used psychological warfare before battles even began. Cities that resisted were destroyed completely. Cities that surrendered were often spared. This reputation became their greatest weapon. By the time of Genghis Khan's death, the Mongol Empire stretched from China to Central Asia. But the expansion did not stop. It accelerated, and one of Genghis Khan's grandsons would be given a special mission. His name was Hulagu Khan. Hulagu was not sent west to negotiate. He was sent to conquer. The Mongol Great Khan ordered him to eliminate all major powers in the Middle East that could resist Mongol expansion. That included Persian fortresses, assassin strongholds, and finally, the Abbasid Caliphate. Baghdad was the final prize, not because it was heavily defended, but because it was symbolically powerful. Destroying Baghdad would mean destroying the political and religious center of the Islamic world. It would send a message no army could ignore. Hulagu moved west with an army unlike anything the region had seen. Historians estimate over 100,000 soldiers, cavalry, engineers, siege experts, Chinese artillery specialists. This was not a barbarian horde. It was a professional war machine, and Baghdad had no idea what was coming. At the time, Baghdad was ruled by Caliph al-Mustasim. He was not a warrior king. He was a court ruler, comfortable, sheltered, surrounded by advisors who told him what he wanted to hear. When reports arrived that Mongol armies were approaching, the caliph dismissed them. Baghdad had thick walls. Baghdad had prestige. Baghdad had survived invasions before. And most importantly, the Caliph believed something else, that the Mongols would never dare attack the spiritual center of Islam. This was his fatal mistake. Instead of preparing defenses, he delayed. Instead of forming alliances, he argued with his ministers. Instead of raising a strong army, he relied on outdated troops and political pride. While inside Baghdad, debates continued. Outside Baghdad, Hulagu Khan was building siege camps. The Mongols sent messengers demanding surrender. The Caliph refused. He believed his city was untouchable. History was about to correct him. In January 1258, Mongol forces arrived outside Baghdad. They did not rush the city. They did not panic. They did what they always did. They surrounded it. Engineers built siege towers. Catapults were assembled. Earthworks were constructed. The Mongols diverted rivers to flood defensive positions. They cut supply routes. Slowly, methodically, Baghdad was isolated. Inside the city, fear began spreading. Food prices rose. Civilians crowded the streets. Soldiers waited on walls that had not been seriously tested in centuries. Then the bombardment began. Massive stones slammed into the walls. Buildings collapsed. Towers shattered. Within days, sections of Baghdad's defenses were breached. The Abbasid army tried to resist. They were overwhelmed. On February 10th, 1258, Baghdad surrendered. The gates were opened. The Mongols entered. And this is where most people expect the story to end. But the real destruction was just beginning. Once inside Baghdad, the Mongols unleashed what they were most feared for: total destruction. For 7 days, the city was systematically looted, burned, and dismantled. Soldiers moved street by street. Homes were emptied. Markets were stripped. Mosques were damaged. Palaces were destroyed. Thousands of civilians were killed. Some accounts describe piles of bodies filling alleyways. Others describe people hiding in basements, praying the soldiers would pass. They rarely did. The most tragic loss was not gold. It was knowledge. Baghdad's libraries were among the greatest on earth. The famous House of Wisdom contained centuries of scientific works, translations of Greek philosophers, medical texts, and astronomical records. Mongol soldiers threw books into the Tigris River. So many manuscripts were destroyed that witnesses said the river turned black from ink. Think about that. Not metaphorically, physically black. Centuries of human knowledge erased in days. This was not just a military defeat. It was cultural annihilation. Caliph al-Mustasim was captured alive. According to historical accounts, Hulagu Khan refused to spill royal blood directly. Instead, the Caliph was wrapped in a carpet. Then Mongol soldiers trampled him with horses. A symbolic end, not just of a man, but of an era. The Abbasid Caliphate, which had ruled since the 8th century, ended quietly, under hooves. No coronation ceremony, no heroic final stand, just silence. When the Mongols finally left Baghdad, they left behind a broken city. Population collapsed. Infrastructure was destroyed. Trade routes shifted. Scholars fled. Doctors disappeared. Baghdad never returned to its former glory. The Islamic Golden Age, which had produced breakthroughs in mathematics, medicine, engineering, and astronomy, did not end in one moment. But 1258 was the wound it never fully healed from. Power shifted. Centers of learning moved. The world entered a new era. Here's the strange twist. The Mongols who destroyed Baghdad would later adopt many aspects of the cultures they conquered. Some converted to Islam, some became patrons of scholars, some ruled peacefully. The same empire that burned libraries would later sponsor education. History is rarely simple. Empires destroy, then imitate, then fade. Baghdad did not fall only because of Mongol strength. It fell because of political arrogance, internal division, complacency, leadership failure. The walls were strong, but the leadership was weak. And no civilization, no matter how advanced, is immune to collapse. Not Rome, not Baghdad, not modern nations. History does not repeat, but it rhymes. Today, Baghdad still exists. People still live there. Cars drive where ancient scholars once walked. But beneath the modern streets lies the memory of a city that once ruled the world with knowledge instead of swords, and the reminder that greatness is fragile. It does not disappear with a single explosion. It fades when leaders stop protecting it, when citizens stop valuing it, when arrogance replaces preparation. Baghdad learned that lesson in 1258. The question is, have we learned it yet? If you want more cinematic history stories like this, make sure to like this video and subscribe to the channel, because history isn't just about the past. It's about understanding what comes next.